We're back. And in this segment, we're going to talk about two Batmans, one that has been Batman, and one that is going to be Batman in the future.
Yeah, and just recently will become Batman again.
Yes.
To get my future tenses right.
Kind of, whenever we talk time travel, if time travel in a storyline is done well, it's great, but sometimes you just go, huh? That's really what I can say about time travel.
Yeah, well, at least this is we're just looking into the future. No one's really going there, with the exception of Tim Drake. Exactly. And that's technically future Tim Drake, so that doesn't count.
Right. Nightwing number 4, Better Than Batman Part 4. And well, this issue sees the culmination of the Better Than Batman storyline, I believe, as Nightwing and Raptor take down the Court of Owls, the League of Owls. They take them down by getting that, what do they call the book?
The Book of Wisdom.
Yes.
Yeah, they get Dr. Leviticus to show them how to essentially operate the Book of Wisdom, which takes coins to operate,
It's a gold coin. Yeah, it's like a gold coin with some etching on the back of it that reveals names of the Court of Owls.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of unique.
Yeah.
And they had this, and Nightwing and Raptor were kind of bonding in it over a way because they had it. They were able to take down the Court of Owls at their hideout, but not before fighting someone who was pretty much a giant owl?
Owl minotaur monster thing. I mean, with them, I kind of they kind of alluded to the court as being sort of mystical this entire time. You know, I think they mentioned they were in Crete at one point in one of the comics. That's where the Minotaur legend comes from.
Okay.
The court sets up this big giant labyrinth, which the Rude, the guy in Norway who they had to save, designed. And here's the giant monster they have to, get chased through the. It just happens to be an owl-themed monster, not a. And it is worth noting it's the orator of the court who is been injected with animal DNA.
Yes.
And stuff. So I mean, it has a very scientific basis to it, which made me happy because having a big owl god monster was a little out there, but...
Well, what did you think of when Raptor used Solulac? He used Solulac's shark attractant on the person, and all of a sudden he started exhibiting some shark characteristics.
Yeah, that he couldn't breathe for a while, which was pretty smart, yeah.
Yeah, that was funny, but in all seriousness, Raptor kind of made himself opened up maybe a little bit to Nightwing, but I don't think he truly was being honest about his circus background.
Yeah, it's funny that Nightwing just now picked up on Solulac, because he explains the origin of Solulac as being the wizard, and he's from Romani mythology, and he also mentions that Raptor knew tarot cards. Which Nightwing knows from his time in the circus. So he starts to think maybe there's a circus background. But, I mean, through this issue, they are connecting. I mean, I think Nightwing's kind of starting to see Raptor as sort of like in a mirror image of himself. Yes. Maybe a little bit darker. They both make kind of similar jokes. I mean, Raptor mentions that as I walk through the maze, this must be how Pac-Man feels, and then Nightwing starts to compare it to the Scorch Trials, and Raptor says, "Don't age me, dude."
Right.
And I mean, I think he's starting to open up to Raptor too.
Yes.
And we still don't really know where his loyalties are, but at the very end, when Raptor kind of forces them to go their separate ways and literally pushes him right out of the maze, off a cliff. He says that he knew Dick's mom. Yeah,
in a roundabout way, he said he pushed him out. And he said, "You still haven't
You know,
I forgot what he had
he
said.
like he said something like, you know, your mom always thought that
Yes.
about you.
Yes.
Yeah, and pushes him out of this cliff, and you know, Nightwing kind of thinks about it for a little bit, but he doesn't really have enough time to think about it. But
No, because when you're falling from a cliff, the last thing would be,
yeah,
did you know my mom?
yeah, and you got to catch onto a drone that's, you know,
Yes, after he uses on his face mask to, hey, need a drone, help, don't call me that. I think Nightwing is being more sincere than Reptar is. I don't know. That's just the initial feeling that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Dick gets back to the Batcave, and immediately Damian Wayne is there to greet him. And the first thing he wants to do is go to the arcade, but he also said that the the detonation, that the bomb that was supposed to be in Damian Wayne's head, it exploded. The Court of Owls is pretty much in ruin. Speaking of ruin, I don't think this adventure that Nightwing went on did anything with his relationship with Batman.
Yeah. Batman, much like Batgirl an issue ago, is not a fan of Raptor.
Yes.
I mean, Batman says that Nightwing should have brought Raptor to justice.
Yep.
Because, I mean, Raptor did commit crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things Raptor says at the end, before they go their separate ways at the end of the maze, is that, you know, Nightwing lives in the light, I live in the darkness. I have to commit crimes to accomplish the things I need to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So Batman calls him out on that. He calls him out on, you know, not doing enough research, he feels, on who Raptor is, what his motives are. Dick says, you know, I looked him up. He doesn't have couldn't get any fingerprints, couldn't get any ID on him. But it did make me think too. Well, and before that, Nightwing says that Batman thinks that you can't walk that line without stepping onto one side. Yep. You know, you're either you have both feet on one side or both feet on the other side. And Nightwing is kind of walking that tightrope. And it kind of got me thinking, wouldn't Dick's relationship with Raptor right now sort of be like Batman's relationship with Catwoman after all these years?
In theory, it might be, yeah.
She's kind of along the same lines. She does criminal acts. He still hangs out with her.
Yep.
I mean, at minimum.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
I mean, Raptor may be more manipulative than Catwoman is. Well, might not be as trustworthy, but...
Well, at the very end, we find out how manipulative and trustworthy Raptor is. Looks like he was working for Cobra the entire time to cripple the Court of Owls and to bring back the book with the names on it. And somehow Dr. Leviticus had installed a back door. Mm-hmm. So every time that Nightwing decodes and Batman decode a name, Cobra gets the name as well. Mm-hmm. And the Cobra person asked Raptor, well, what about Nightwing? And Raptor says, I have him wrapped around my finger.
Yeah.
I don't know what that really means in the future.
Yeah, well, it makes me wonder, too. I mean, if Raptor really works for Cobra, or if maybe he's trying to get into another organization to take it out from the inside, kind of just like what he did with the Parliament.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That's double crossing and triple crossing, just like we said of Deathstroke a while back. That's a lot of playing.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
This first arc of Nightwing went back to reestablishing Dick Grayson as Nightwing, and how the subtleties, it isn't about him becoming better than Batman, it's about him in his own way being better than Batman, with about trust, with about how he conducts himself, how he keeps those close around him. Will that get him in trouble in the future? Only time can tell, and I think the Raptor situation is far from being concluded. We might see Raptor become really the opposite of Nightwing and being his arch nemesis in the future.
That would be cool. I mean, Nightwing doesn't really have one.
No.
I mean, that I can think. He's had enemies that he's fought, but none of them really stuck, especially during his years in Bloodhaven. Mm-hmm. You know, he had a few. I mean, he fought Blockbuster a whole bunch of times, but you know, it would be nice to have someone sort of on his level in terms of physical ability and experiences and stuff. That would be cool.
Batman Beyond number 16, Wired for Death Epilogue. One of the reasons we decided to discuss this issue is because it looks like that Batman Beyond is, well, it is going to have a rebirth title here. Next will be Batman Beyond Rebirth number 1. But I think it has some ramifications for the current storylines of the Batman universe, where an older Tim Drake was dragged into a possible future. He took up the mantle of Batman while Terry McGinnis was under the spell of Spellbinder. And this is kind of almost like a reset of getting things to the status quo before the rebirth issue.
Yeah, exactly. It made me think as I read this, if you're a fan of the Batman Beyond animated series,
yes,
you would know when this series picks up.
Right.
I mean, you'd be familiar with the characters and
yes,
what predicament they're in and everything. And since Tim Drake wasn't on the animated series, it kind of makes sense to get him out of that.
Well, Tim Drake was actually in Batman Beyond Return of the Joker.
Oh,
did you remember?
I didn't know. I didn't see that one. I saw a lot of the episodes, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So a couple of differences between this was that Barbara Gordon seemed to be a lot younger.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how far into the future it is. But just reading it, not knowing a lot of the backstory, this issue kind of held up pretty well because it saw Tim Drake kind of pushed to the limit of what he was enduring more emotionally and psychologically than he has pretty much any other time in his life. We was talking about Brother Eye has been manipulated, been taken out of time. He didn't want to be Batman. He never felt good being a Robin because he forced his way in as opposed to Batman choosing him. This was kind of like Tim Drake's final fight within himself.
Yeah. It's a very isolated Tim Drake.
Yes.
I mean, it's Tim Drake without a Bat family. It's
right.
Tim without the Titans, because he mentions that the Titans, he felt better when he was with the Titans than when he was ever with Batman.
Right.
And and he's forced into a mantle that he doesn't want, fighting
Correct.
against the guy who's supposed to be in that mantle, who's been brainwashed to be a villain.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, this is a very not happy Tim Drake at this point.
Tim Drake is over it, as they would say. He is over it.
Yeah.
At the very end, though, I thought it was cool. His little brother Matt, Terry McGinnis' little brother Matt, he came in one of the Batwings with artificial intelligence named Alfred, and he even talked like Alfred, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he came in and kind of disrupted things just enough to get McGinnis and Barbara out of Spellbinder's control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was nice. It, it also, Tim had also had a sort of a bonding with Matt.
Yes.
Too, kind of almost being like a surrogate Terry for Matt, and so they ended up sort of. It sounded like they kind of busted each other's chops for quite a while, and so it helps to bring Matt in too, because this is kind of a small Bat family. With
Correct.
Barbara and Terry and Matt and Tim leaving the picture.
Yes. Another reason we read this was because, like we talked about a moment ago, this gives us more insight in Tim Drake. He doesn't feel comfortable in his own skin. And at the end of the issue, he is happy to give the costume, the mantle of the Bat, back to Terry McGinnis. And he takes off to go find his own adventures because he says, this is a Gotham that he doesn't know. These are people that he really doesn't have relationships with. And he never felt comfortable being part of this family. Does this apply his uncomfortableness? Does this apply to present day Tim Drake as well? Is this an extension of what Tim Drake is feeling in Batman Beyond? Is this what we're seeing in the future is what he feels in the present before Detective Comics 940 happened?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. These may be feelings that mainstream Tim hasn't come to feel yet. Maybe they haven't coalesced yet. I mean, a lot of these feelings would take a lot of time to get through. And of course, I mean, Tim, at least mainstream Tim, seemed in a pretty happy spot being sort of on the Bat team, and he had spoiler there, and he was going to go off to college, and it didn't seem to be thinking about that much. But I mean, this could be one of the things behind him wanting to go to college and leave the Bat team. So who knows?
The end of this issue, two things happen. Terry McGinnis takes back the mantle of the Bat, flies away, everything looks good. The next morning, Tim is driving his motorcycle, and all of a sudden, as he drives into the sunset, a flash of light appears and engulfs him and whisks him away. I think that has something to do with present-day Tim Drake as well. Present-day Tim Drake was captured by Oz, and I think future Tim Drake was also taken by Oz to take him off the board for a particular reason. We'll find out. But yeah, I do think that this has something to do with the current present storyline of that overarching Watchmen, Rebirth, and Detective Comics, what had happened there. And it'll be interesting to see if that was a direct result of mainstream Tim being taken out. I mean, if that made this Tim just collateral damage, or if they explicitly went out to get this Tim out. So that'll be interesting to see. I look forward to Batman Beyond, Rebirth, and more Batman Beyond in the future. I think that what was always cool about Batman Beyond was we got to see characters progress. We got to see evolution where a future that could be and might be happening to the Batman universe. Big question though, will Bruce Wayne be back? Or because Bruce Wayne in the animated series was always the mentor of McGinnis. Will we see that in future issues of Batman Beyond? Only time will tell, and in the weeks and months ahead, we will be reading, and I think I'll be reading a few issues of Batman Beyond to see what happens. I really enjoyed the animated series. I didn't really keep up with the comics when they first started. These introduced Terry to the DC universe, or the future DC universe. But I'm curious to see where this goes. Batman Beyond will be a title that we will read and we will discuss in future episodes. And right now we're going to take our last break, and when we come back, we are going to wrap up with Batman number 6. We'll be back in just another moment.